Hey everyone, this is Joachim Comic Center, and thank you for clicking on this Finding Fandom video. In this one, we are gonna meet up with Mitch, also known as Omnibuddy. Mitch made a video a few months ago back when he took up the subject of FOMO. And as you know, I'm very high on that subject, trying to take it up in almost every video of mine. And so I felt that I have to reach out to this guy and talk with him about the subject and get another angle on it. Don't forget, there are links down below in the description for where you can find Mitch and his channel and everything. And without further ado, here is Omnibuddy. Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Joachim Comic Center, and today we have another guest here on Finding Fandom. I would like you all to welcome my buddy, Omnibuddy, Mitch.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Welcome, dude.
Thank you. It's good to finally be able to talk to you. I listen to you talk all the time on your channel, but I've not been able to really talk with you. So it's good to be able to sit down with you from across the world.
Absolutely. It's always this time difference and everything. I should mention this, that this is a very odd one because it's like 9 hours time difference here.
Yeah.
If you can see, like the sun is just coming up here in my kitchen right now. And I think the sun is just set.
The sun just set outside my window. So I said goodbye and you're saying hello to it.
It's still there, Mitch. It's just over here right now. Be calm.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll come back.
Thank God. Well, it can take its time over there so I can get a lot of sleep tonight. So
yeah, don't speak about that. I got 4 hours this night doing this, but I happily to do it.
Well, thank you.
And yeah, so with this Finding Fandom and everything, of course, we're all comic book collectors here. We know that. We're all fans of it. And I'm trying to find and explore some YouTube channels out there that I feel talk about a little more than just keeping it up with the latest single issues and collected editions out there, because I know we all love those. But I believe there's some more to it, and you've made some videos about it also, which we're going to talk about. But I can start off with just some generic questions, like what got you started into comic books and collected editions doing this hobby?
Well, I've always been pretty geeky, pretty nerdy. My brothers, so I'm the youngest in my family. So I have my brother-in-law who's 8 years older, and then my stepbrother who's a few years older. We've all been pretty into video games and movies and TV and always geeking out over that stuff. But back right as I was graduating in high school, this is going to kind of date me as I say, we had a podcast on TV, movies, and video games for like 8 years. Whoa. And near the end of it, we made a kind of a family friend who worked at our local comic shop, who, we got into, hanging out with a lot because of TV, movies, and video games, mainly video games. And so then eventually he came onto the podcast and he started talking about comics, because he works at the comic shop. And he's like, you guys don't read comics? And I grew up, I had like 3 issues out of a 4-issue miniseries of Spider-Man that I read like 40 times, but I was missing number 2. I had 1, 3, and 4 or something like that. But that was really my only comics I'd ever read as a kid. And I read them a lot. And I watched all the X-Men and Spider-Man and Batman cartoons and all those. But so he hooked us up, and I think the first ones he ever gave me was Remender's Uncanny X-Force trade paperbacks. And so that was my first introduction to comics really at all. to seriously reading them. And then for the podcast, we all just started reading comics and talking about it, and it became TV, movies, video games, and comics. And that went on for like 8 years, and that we all got married or had kids and got busy with just life and all that. And so that all fell off. And then I kept reading comics, and I was reading single issues. My first single issues I ever bought was Marvel Now, Hawkeye #1 with Matt Fraction, and Captain Marvel with Kelly Sue DeConnick, #1. And then I started reading Batman New 52. So those were my, people kind of rail on New 52 and Marvel Now and all these relaunches, but those were my first introduction to buying comics and setting up a pull list. And so that's where I really got into it. And then I got really into Ninja Turtles, IDW's TMNT.
Yeah, and we've seen those videos.
Yeah, I love TMNT. It's one of my favorite series of all time. And one of my buddies was like, dude, you got to join this Facebook group that does collected editions. I'm like, I don't really like trade paperbacks. I like single issues. They're collectible and cool. I'm a kind of a collector at heart. If I like something, I got to collect it. And so he's like, well, this is really cool. He sent me a screenshot of TMNT Secret History of the Foot Clan slipcase edition, and it was limited. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it was like a really cheap deal. And so I joined this group of collected edition collectors, and then all of a sudden I was buying, I bought a couple Daredevil omnibuses by Miller 1 and 2, and then
great stuff.
Then I went and I bought all 5 Captain America omnis from Brubaker. So that was my second omnibus purchase, were all 5 of those. And
nice.
You can see behind me now. It's it's
beautiful.
So that was my short but long-winded explanation of that's how I got into this hobby and this field of collecting.
That's great. I mean, that's a much more collected answer than I could give myself, because it's so spread out. I don't know what influenced me to actually start. I think the channel that actually influenced me to start YouTube videos about it isn't really existing anymore, because he's a family man now. And we'll go back to that, about family and priorities and everything. Mm-hmm. And yeah, as you mentioned there, you have a very fancy collection and shelving unit back there, I would say.
Yeah.
That you don't see in every collection video. So what are those?
So if I'm going to collect something, I like the collection to look clean, be presentable. This is our downstairs office in my house, and it's also doubles as my kids' playroom. So it's our office, my library, the playroom. So if I open up any of those cabinets down here on the bottom, it's all kids' toys and puzzles and games and all that. So I was like, we need to keep it clean and tidy, but also be safe from a 2, 5, and 7-year-old. And but I want to be able to see it. And I was doing a YouTube channel now, and I wanted to be able to present it and have a nice place to have it all together. 'Cause for a while I had a really nice IKEA Hemnes case. They're really nice. I just like having actual shelves over Calyxes are great, those cube shelves, but I like having a little bit, I needed doors for protection from kids.
Exactly. I did the same for my cat. So.
Yep, exactly. You got to keep them safe. If you're going to invest, if you're going to make an investment, you want to keep that investment safe. So
absolutely.
And what's really nice about doors is no dust too, which is really nice. At least less dusting.
Yeah, but I think it's an understatement, or people doesn't appreciate having the doors on the bookcase as much as you should, because I don't know, because you sort of separate it from the other space, of course, but still with the glass, with it, it's still there. it still shows off the stuff that you love and everything.
Yeah.
So depending on your state of mind, what you're doing in that room, they're there.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
it's always a fun conversation piece too. Now, because for a while I had one bookcase, where is it? Right here. I was about floor to ceiling. It was IKEA Hemnes, which was a great shelf. I loved it. I wish I could have done. They're basically like a Billy's, pretty similar,
yep,
almost
I,
exactly. They look almost
I,
exactly like yours.
I had
Um,
one in the beginning, a black one, sold it
yeah,
off, but it was amazing and
yeah,
sturdy.
yeah, super sturdy. But I only had one, and they don't sell a split door for, because I wanted a split
Oh,
door.
yeah.
They sell, like half glass, half, just
Yep.
wood. But so I want to be able to split it so kids could get in and out easily. And, I'm trying to, obviously, like, my kids use this room more than I do, all day while I'm up at work. And so they're the ones that are the primary users. So I needed it's a shared space. And so
I
the
love
rest
the
of
multifunction. I love the
yeah,
multifunction, I would say, because that's still in the spirit of IKEA furniture and everything.
exactly, exactly. So, I couldn't get another one like that. So I had two 3x3s and a 2x2 cube shelf in my closet, and it was just chaos in there. And it was kind of fun, but it wasn't, as you can tell, I like clean aesthetics, not even black shelves or dark shelves. I like bright, clean, and it was just like crazy messy in there, and not at all what I like to have. And so my wife and I talked about it, and like, okay, well, you have, a lot of people over the whole pandemic got into collecting whatever. And I
Yeah.
was really collecting comics, but one of the collection habits I picked up was Funko Pops, which I never thought I'd get into, but I saw a couple of them I really liked and thought were pretty
Yeah.
fun. And then all of a sudden I got down that rabbit hole. And
That's how it starts.
yeah,
Just
and as a
just the one.
yep,
Only takes one.
yeah, and as a collector, it's like I said, it's once you start collecting something, and once I start collecting something, I want to collect everything, a whole series or a run. And so my wife and I are like, oh, okay, if I sell off and get rid of, I'm going to keep a few of them, like some of my favorites, but if I sell off the vast majority of these, like pops, then I can just concentrate on one collection, which is actually kind of freeing of time of, the hunt, which I do enjoy the hunt,
Yep.
but now I can concentrate on hunting one type of collectible, which is nice. And then it just makes it presentable, and I can clear out my closet and
Yep.
get some space back. So we kind of came to the conclusion, like, okay, if I can sacrifice this, I can have this, and have all my stuff together. And I was like, okay, that's more than reasonable. And really in the long run, it frees up my time and what I'm always thinking about, like, oh, gotta collect this, gotta watch for this drop that's happening. It can happen anytime this week. I gotta be on alert on my phone, for any time it happens, and run off and throw out my credit card, my debit card, and make that purchase. And so it really, like, a clean aesthetic, but it's also helps me, you say this a lot, just not having that FOMO. And I think that was one of your
Yeah.
more recent videos.
Conscious buying. I mean,
Yeah. Where
really
you're not,
think about it before you do it, and not
yeah,
just jump into it just the second that you see it or maybe
yeah,
heard of it.
yeah, that conscientious collecting.
Conscious
And
collecting. I mean, essential collecting. You can
yeah,
call it
yeah,
essentialism.
yep. And
What do I really need?
yeah, so what's nice about this is, like, okay, everything stays here. Everything I'm keeping. If I'm going to be selling something off, or I buy something new and it doesn't fit in here, that means something else has to come out and get sold off. So I'll keep a shelf in my closet for kind of that shuffle of what's coming in and out, kind of a thing. But
Yeah.
otherwise, like, the essential, what I want to keep long term, will be here, which is really freeing and nice. And you and I are both pretty creative, I feel like, and one of the mantras I've always lived by, at least in the past 15 to 20 years, is constraint breeds creativity. A lot of times people think, oh, if you have complete freedom, then you can be creative. But really, like that's almost a hindrance, because you don't know which direction to go. But if you're focused and you say, okay, I have to work within these bounds, what can I do? And then you can get pretty creative when you have those constraints put on you. And so it's actually kind of fun, like, okay, this new book's coming out, I kind of want it, but do I really want it? Like, do I want it more than what has to leave? So like, I was looking at the new Star Wars Legends omnibus that just dropped. I think it was last
the one with, let's see,
Old Republic.
So much October solicits Marvel.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's another one that dropped in the solicits, but there's one that just actually came out this last week. But there's it was a Legends book or something like that. I'm like, man, that looks really cool. I kind of want it, but I'm like, do I want it more than, because I filled this up pretty well. I didn't think I'd fill it up so fast, but it filled up.
We all think that way.
Exactly. You get a bunch of shelves and you're like, oh, I'm good for like a solid couple of years. And then 3 months later, oh no.
You're not even good for next week.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives you kind of that freedom to go, okay, I don't actually need that. I have a huge backlog anyways. And so I can work on chipping away at that, which, relieves some pressure too. Like, oh, now I read it. I don't have to hang on to it if I really wasn't that enthralled with the story or won't read it again. So that can go, which, if I sell that off, then I can use that money to get a book that I might be really interested in, or I want to upgrade on a story or something like that. So it's nice having a little bit of constraint rather than just, oh, it'll fit in my closet. I can just throw it those random shelves in my closet.
But you want to display it. You want to show it off. I mean, in some way or form.
Yeah, and as I've been trying to grow my channel, which has been a lot of fun.
I've seen it. Congratulations! When we're recording this video, you recently hit 200 subscribers. So congratulations on that. And I see that it's still rising up, the numbers.
Yeah,
even after that.
It's been good. It's I really like doing. It's fun doing something that I'm interested in and using. If you have some sort of skill set. But like I actually do video production, a lot of video production for part of my job, for my career. Yeah. But I don't necessarily do fun stuff for my career, because it's nonprofit and
it's work.
It's government type policy work. And sorry if you can hear my kid upstairs.
No problem.
But
no problem. Sorry if you can hear my cat.
It's it's okay. It's somewhat interesting government work and policy work, but it's not really like something I'm passionate about and have a lot of fun doing, because it's just talking heads. Whereas with this, I can do some really fun B-roll shots of like close up of books and awesome art and talk about really fun, interesting stories. And so it's been really fun to be able to do something that I'm passionate about, video production, but now I get to do it for and about something I'm also passionate about. It's also finding that balance of, I gotta make another video this, I gotta at least make 2 videos this week, to keep up with that YouTube algorithm or something like that. Otherwise I'm just gonna drop off. And so it's
So if it's the 2 videos per week, your safe number, you would say that you feel like that's a good stride to go for?
Yeah.
Or would you say it's more?
I mean, I'm like looking at YouTube. Ideally you're doing a video a day kind of a thing, which That's just not a reality in my world, is to be able to do that. And plus, I could stretch out unboxing videos and haul videos and do like, oh, I read this trade paperback or the single issue, and kind of do reviews like that. But it wouldn't be something I'm passionate about, and I'd rather put out less content that's in my what I'd rather put out less content, and content that I'd appreciate watching, and content that isn't draining to myself, that I'm excited to talk about. I'd rather put that out and put out less of that than put out content for the sake of content.
Quality before quantity.
Exactly. That's a quick way of summing up exactly what I just said.
Yeah. But I feel the same way. And I mean, I now barely make one video per week, but I really try to do that still, even though now going back to a workplace where I have to be at least 75% of the week of my work hours. I mean, so that's like 4 or 5 days a week. And before I moved, I still made videos back then, but I didn't edit them like anything. I think it was turn on, turn off the camera. So it takes a lot more time to get some quality videos out there also.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's see here. This is going great, by the way. A lot of questions answered here without me even asking them.
Well, I figure I kind of knew some of what we had talked about a little bit, so I'd just try and naturally answer some of them. But
yeah, this is great.
It doesn't have to be an hour.
And finally, the sun is just moving, so it doesn't.
I noticed finally hitting the.
Yeah. This is actually much more comfortable than what has been the first 20 minutes out of this video, and yeah, it's still good. Let's see here. Yeah, so going through the priorities there on YouTube and the videos that you get out, would you say that you prioritize getting the video uploaded, then get to reading, or spend time with your family and everything? What, of course, I think the family beats everything every single time. So let's move past that and talk about the reading your books, picking up your books, making videos and uploading them and everything. What would you say you prioritize?
Yeah, I mean, well, beyond family and having to keep up with work and things like that, you can't really have a channel to talk about comics without actually reading the comics, unless you're just going to do unboxing videos.
So true.
I mean, you can just do unboxing videos, and those are really fun. They're really easy to shoot, and they're quick and easy to edit, and a lot of times they get a lot of views and interaction, which is really nice. So I don't mind doing them, but that can't be everything that carries, or at least in my mind, that can't carry my channel, and that's not what I'd want to be doing 24/7. I'd rather talk about reviewing stories, and even reviewing the actual like build quality of books. I love I've done two so far, two self-binds of books, and that was a lot of fun. So I couldn't get a hold of BPRD, Plague of Frogs, Volume 1 and 3 and 4. Those were great.
Sorry.
Crazy expensive.
Yeah, those were hard before even I mean, I've been in this 9 years now, and they were tough to get even when I started. And I wasn't interested per se, but I still knew about it because everybody else was talking about them, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, you know what? They're the same trim size. I could, I wonder if I could just take the soft covers off of them and put some hard covers on and print off some dust jackets that match, and then I'd have them, and people probably wouldn't even know the difference. And there you go. And so I was like, well, what the heck, why not? So like for Christmas one year, I asked for some bookbinding equipment, just like some small packs and kits and things like that. And so I did that, and I need to buy some more material so I can do some more of them. And now I kind of have a little bit of an idea. And I actually did some live stream on Facebook. This was even really before I started the Omnibuddy channel.
Yeah.
But those were so fun. So it's not even necessarily reviewing or unboxing, but just everything kind of that encompasses our hobby of collecting, because a lot of collecting hardbacks is how do you take care of them, and taking care of them kind of means how they work and how they're put together and the form.
That's really the true materialism, not just buying stuff for the sake of buying stuff, but really true materialism is really founded in taking care of what you have.
Yeah, and curating, because I like to kind of, like I've said before, having to have that constraint of what I can bring in, because something might have to go out if I bring something in. So I forgot where I was going with this.
The BPRD books, binding them yourself, curing them, taking care of them.
Yeah, curating and taking care of books beyond, you're curating a collection to make it the collection that you really want and you personally really appreciate. But also part of curating a collection and kind of being almost a miniature librarian, like a little bit of that is also understanding how to take care of the books, how to, support a text block, or how to break in an omnibus text block. You don't just crack open the front cover and just start reading page to page. How do you open it up and get the eye hole started so the book doesn't fall apart on you, especially because some of these bigger books, if you just open them, sometimes they're so big they just can fall apart. I'm thinking like DC's.
I buy DC books. I was just about to say.
Yeah, I mean they make some great looking books, but also you got to be really careful with a lot of them because they can just fall apart on you right out of the shrink wrap. And so how do you open the book properly to try and keep that from happening? And even then it might still happen. How do you take care of it, to mitigate any issues that you might have? How do you fix it? So that was a big reason why I wanted to even start learning how to bind books, is to understand how to fix them if I did have problems, because there were some problems here and there, like, okay, where does bookbinding tape help, and what does a ribbon do? Like, oh, my ribbon's coming off of the top of my book, and it's like, well, it's pretty much just aesthetic. You can just glue it back on with some book glue, pH neutral, and just slap it on there, which now to me is like pretty straightforward. But when I first started, it was scary. Like, oh, this thing's kind of coming apart a little bit. How do I fix it? Oh yeah, you just stick some glue on there, do this, and start an eye hole with a ruler or something like that. Oh, okay, that makes way more sense. So it's beyond just reading and collecting, but also learning how to take care of a collection, which is a lot of fun too. Just there's not just one part of that of collecting comics. It's a whole, I guess it sounds stupid maybe, but like a lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. Less stress and everything, I would guess, also with learning all of those techniques. And do you still have those custom bound BPRD books?
I do. They're upstairs right now.
Because I was thinking, if we are looking at those books, because I can see the BPRD books right behind you, I was thinking, those looks like the originals. Man, that was a good job.
I did try and put one of the dust jackets on, because while I was binding them, someone PM'd me and said, hey, I know you're looking for these. I have them, and I'll sell them to you for. They actually found Rachel Rising by Terry Moore, which is like, if it's not my favorite, it's top 3 favorite books of all time.
I've read it, so I can totally get why
Yeah,
it gets such high praise from you.
yeah. So I mean, the end gets a little
It
iffy
has
here. People,
it has an ending. It has an
yeah, it
ending.
has an ending, but a lot of it's about the journey, and the journey is
Exactly.
amazing. And so while I was binding those books, though, someone approached me and said, "Hey, I have BPRD 3 and 4, and I have Rachel Rising Black Edition, which is the limited edition one." And I was looking all over for that, and it was like impossible to find for a relatively decent price. And so I got both of those books, and so I was like, okay, well, I'll finish binding these books and maybe give them away or sell them. I'll probably just keep them for now. I don't know, but the second one I kind of screwed up a little bit, so I gotta buy some new book boards because I made the covers actually too short, so that text block actually hangs out from the cover boards. So I never actually finished gluing it in because I wanted to redo it. But that's again part of the learning process, and part of the fun of it is learning how all that works. And you don't learn unless you make mistakes. And
Oh,
so,
absolutely not. Those are the best teachers.
yep, exactly.
One Yoda said that, I think.
Something like that. Yeah. So,
Uh, let's see here. Getting into another topic, because we talked about priorities and everything in YouTube within this. But this is actually the longest it's taken me into an interview to actually get to say the video that actually of yours that caught my attention,
mhm.
because like I said, there's a lot of haul videos out there, but this one really stood out for me, and that was your overview video on FOMO.
Oh, yeah.
And for people that haven't heard the term, God bless you. And that is FOMO, standing for fear of missing out. And that would not necessarily have to be on comic books, of course. It would be anything that is being released or being hyped up, maybe the latest phone, latest app, latest series out there.
Hmm.
It just has to have because everyone else had it, and maybe it'll run out.
Yeah.
And yeah, what made you think I'll make this video?
I was like, a lot of people, it's almost the rite of passage for a comic book YouTuber. It seems like everyone's got to make the FOMO video at some point. But there's a lot of really good advice out there for
Absolutely.
really collecting anything. And the one thing I was like, I can't just say the same thing over and over. Do I have anything new to say that I haven't heard before? And so I kind of ruminated on it for a while, really, because I wrote down FOMO as a list of possible things I could talk about in my notes app. I was like, so I was thinking about it for a while, and finally I was like, you know what? I've made some mistakes in my collecting. Mainly, it's been about FOMO with my collecting, but my biggest mistake has always been, and I've probably made it like 3 or 4 times, but has been buying out of print books. And which I think most anyone who's watching this can relate to, buying an out of print book
Absolutely. I'll
for
share a story after this.
yeah, for like way over cover. And so it's actually, where is it? All right there.
Ah, the same book.
Infinite
Ah,
Crisis Omnibus. And I got that book and it's that book, like if I pulled it out, I have to be very careful with it. I mean, it is a classic DC falling apart in your hands
it's the
book.
first printing.
Yeah, it was a first printing, and it was before any of the reprints happened. And I got it, like I was like, all right, I'm gonna get this. It's only $200 because
Only
it's falling apart. Only
$200.
200 because it's falling apart. And I got it, and you know what? Like, I don't. And I think it was 3 days later, 2 or 3 days later, after I bought it on eBay, that the reprint was announced, and I was like,
Oh,
no freaking way. And so there's a big joke with it happens to me all the time with Infinite Crisis. There's a few other ones. I'm trying to look and see what they are, but it's happened to me a fair amount of times where I've gone and bought a really expensive book, and within a week or two, it gets reprinted. It's kind of like, I don't know, like it's just my curse, I guess.
I'm gonna try to make you feel better about that $200 that you spent.
Yeah. Well, so right there, I have Usagi Yojimbo #1, Volume 1 Limited Edition, which I bought for $400, and it was slightly damaged, which it's not really that damaged, but about what was it, month or two after I got it, the reprint was announced. Yeah. So I actually have that sitting right next to it, is the second edition. But I don't regret buying that one. For one, of course not. I got the rest of the series so cheap because #1 was so hard to find that I bought the rest. I bought #1 and then I bought the rest of the series like the next day for so cheap that altogether it was still cover for everything. So it was still cover price for everything. That was kind of my justification for buying it, but it was still a little bit of a blow that like a month after I paid that much money for a book, it gets reprinted. But quickly that series has become one. I knew buying that series, I could at least, if I didn't like it, I could get out of it and get the same price.
Yeah,
now
definitely.
Now I could get way more for that series than before. But it's quickly become my all-time favorite series. I finally just made my reading order video of it. But all that to say, my big thing with FOMO is like prices are going up. I'm gonna miss out, and I think that's a big thing with everyone. Is you're worried that you're gonna not be able to get this book because it's gonna go out of print or become super hard to find, and you're gonna have to spend way more. So you end up buying everything that comes out, and you can't keep up with everything that comes out. There's just no possible way to read that much. Yeah, and so if you're buying,
you can buy as much, but you can't read that much. There's no way.
I mean, sure, there might be some people out there that can read an Omni every couple days or something like that, but that is the exception to the rule. And so I was like, you know what, my advice is to, and I say this all throughout that video, is just wait. And which seems totally counterintuitive to FOMO, because FOMO is like, go now, go. And it's like, even if you have to spend double what you're going to have, what you would have spent on the book. So say you get it from In Stock Trades or Organic Price Books or CGN or wherever you get it, and you get it for, it's a $150 book and you get it for $75. But you wait and it does go out of print and you miss the boat on it, and it goes up to $150 that you have to spend, or even $200 that you have to spend. But you realize, no, this is a book, this is a series I really do actually want to invest in. Even if you have to go spend that $150, $200 later, you're still saving money in the long run, because you're not buying 4 other books that, you wait on them, you do your waiting thing, and they go out of print. And you're like, you know what? I waited. It went out of print. My life didn't end. The world didn't end. My shelves didn't implode. And I didn't, nothing happened. I'm totally fine not having this book. So you didn't spend, and that, that'll probably happen more often than not, now, especially. The books aren't going out of print within they're not becoming hard to get within a couple minutes of going live, which was the case for a while with the pandemic going on. Now you're like, okay, the book didn't go out of print, I can get it later. I realize I really do want to read this story, and now I've caught up on some backlog. Now I do want to go get it. And so, but more often, a lot of times you're like, oh, you know what? I didn't really need that. So you actually save a lot of money there. So if you end up with a couple books, you end up, and then you buy that one book that went out of print, you're spending maybe the same amount, maybe, probably a lot less actually in the long run, and you're not using up shelf space, and you're not ending up with this huge backlog of books, and you're just a lot less stressed, really. And that was my advice. And some people might disagree with, like, well, you know, and there is exceptions to that rule. Like when Usagi Yojimbo Limited Edition Volume 1, the second edition of that came out, everyone knew there's only 600 copies of this. If you want it, you have to get it now. But with most books, there's thousands and thousands and thousands printed, and you can get them later.
Yeah, and what some people don't think, I mean, because with the Usagi Yojimbo book being reprinted from Volume 1 and so forth, I mean, what they don't think about, because if you're like living in the moment, because I would think that with FOMO, you're pretty much in the moment and don't think ahead.
Yeah,
as much. You get tunnel vision and everything, and gotta get it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're only focusing on Volume 1 at that point. But knowing that series, as it's finished, I guess you could say, there's 7 to 8 more volumes upcoming, so you're not really pre-ordering or buying something for $75. You're really investing almost $750, or what am I saying? That's right, $750 maybe.
Yeah.
Plus shipping, depending on where you're at.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those
lucky people.
Yeah, exactly. Us lucky people in America for our shipping and Amazon shipping and all that. You know, we're spoiled. But you know, a lot of times it's like, it's, you look at like Marvel Cosmic stuff. It's like, do you want to, you know, I'm looking at that behind me right now, like all those books. Like all those books, like, well, if you're going to buy Infinity Gauntlet, are you going to buy Infinity Crusade and Infinity War? Thanos Origin and all that. And it's like, you know, I started reading Marvel Cosmic and I was like, okay, I really do actually love Marvel Cosmic stuff. So I'm going to invest in that series. And so like you kind of find what you like, and then, but yeah, you got to realize like a lot of times you're not going to be just buying one book. So if you're experiencing FOMO over one book, are you
prepared to do it 7 more times?
Yeah, so you can get the whole thing, and then a lot of times you end up with a whole series of books you haven't even dug into, and then you start reading the first couple. I've seen it so many times. Someone opens,
I didn't like this, bought the whole set, didn't like the first volume.
Exactly. And like, I have, you know, Berserk Volume 1 through 7, and, you know, Volume 2 through 7 is sealed, Volume 1 opened. And you're like, you started reading it, and you realize you didn't like it after you FOMO'd and bought it all, and then you realize, I don't need this anymore. I mean, some stuff happens where, you know, you have emergency bills and you got to sell stuff off. But, you know, a lot of times it's just people experiencing that FOMO and not waiting and really thinking about it. I had that today or yesterday with Stan Sakai original art that went up for Comic-Con. And I was like, it's $200 for an original from him. And it was just like a quick ink sketch for $200.
Okay, so nothing like inked and finished.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like watercolor, which would be no. But you know, so it's a pretty quick sketch. I'm like, that would be amazing. And I was talking to my wife. I'm like, because I knew my wife would probably talk me out of it.
Yeah, in your back of your mind, you went to her just so that she actually could say no to you, I think.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, here's what I'm thinking, because he's one of my favorite artists. He writes my favorite story. I would love to own an original. I don't know if I should do this. It's $200 to $250. I'll have like 2 minutes to decide maybe, or they're all gone. And she's like, I don't know why. Like, don't just go spend that money because you want a piece of original art from him. Like, wouldn't you rather do like a commission? It might be more, but you could do a commission and get more of what you want.
Like, it would be more special because
Yeah.
I went through that when I went through my collection on books that I should sell. Because I've sold things that has been signed for me several times.
Yeah.
It could have been just because, I really didn't care for this story. I had something signed from an artist in the All-Star Batman from DC Rebirth by Scott Snyder. And that run, personally, I think it's like the worst Batman stuff I've read since, well, the previous All-Star Batman.
Yeah.
And so I sold that off. Then I think I sold off Justice League Year One. It was signed by the artist. It didn't sign my name into it, so it made for an easier transaction. I've actually sold stuff that has my name in it, bought from people with the same name.
That I feel like, well, I guess I assume your name's a little bit more common in.
Joachim is more common here, I guess. And I didn't actually think we would get into the actual name, which has become sort of a minuscule meme on other live stream channels.
Exactly, trying to figure out how to pronounce your name.
Joachim, let's see here. Joachim, and then just put them together. I mean, with the American tongue, I think that it's nearly impossible to pronounce it with the Swedish mother tongue. So you're all good, buddy.
Okay. So.
And I never correct anyone otherwise either, for that matter. But the FOMO and everything, and getting into that, I should tell you about just the Infinite Crisis one. It was a huge whale when I was still on the hunt. I was still hunting Spider-Man books on eBay and everything, but that was my big white one, my big white whale. And because they were rarely up for selling an auction. And once and I failed out, I think twice, on buying it. But there was this one time I was so dedicated, much like this situation. I set my alarm clock to go up in the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m. my time. And I was there, and I was willing to spend whatever needed.
Just get it done.
And I ended up buying the Infinite Crisis by DC Comics first printing for $300. But it was a good binding, though. It wasn't falling apart. That's the extra $100 plus shipping, I guess. And I read that. I had still read that story, the main story within trade paperback collections and the mini hardcover collection, but I had my eyes set on the overall story because I've heard that it's one of the best DC events out there, and it is my number one favorite event. And I read it twice since, and then sold it. Then I bought the upgraded edition with better binding from DC Comics in the end. But I would like to say that in my defense, I read that book. I do not regret spending those money. I got at least 3 years out of it, spending in my collection before a reprint was announced.
But
I'm not perfect in any way, so I had to share that story that I've also been caught into FOMO and everything. And
I feel like everyone gets sucked into it. And whenever I see someone getting sucked into it, I try and gently nudge them and be like, hey, just like, because you see people get into collecting, especially these are really expensive and they take up a lot of space, and they can take up a lot of just time in actually collecting, let alone all the time in reading. And you just see them getting sucked in. It's like, just don't. I just try and gently warn them, like, hey, just I noticed you posted this huge collection and you've only been collecting for 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
that's a beautiful collection you got there, but also be careful because, you know, are you overspending? I've seen people like go way into debt and they're like, oh, I got to pay off my credit card debt from all these books.
That's so
And
sad.
yeah, you got to, people get sucked into it. And I just try and say, like, hey, I've seen this happen tons of times. It might not be you, but you got to be careful. Don't get too sucked in and you can't, most people can't afford to jump on every single hype train that that us collectors get on. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
new Netflix series, a new Amazon series comes out and now everyone has to buy all 12 Invincible books. And it's been uh, it's fun because you can jump on that train and be with everyone else and talk about it and nerd out over it. But also, there's a cost to it, not just
Yeah.
a physical space and a physical toll on.
And I mean, as a
Yeah.
new collector that gets in, and because I would think that you and me are like more into the veteran category, maybe, or senior category into it,
That's crazy.
with some years put into it.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're getting into it and then buy books as fast as you said, it's not really a completionist mentality that most senior or veteran collectors have with, okay, this book comes out now, I'll buy the next one and everything, prepare for that. I
Mhm.
know kind of what the space and money that's going to go into it. But then there's just the pure consumption mentality
Mhm.
of it. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, there's no golden ticket book out there. We'll accept you for any book or however big or small
Yeah.
collection you have out there. There's no correct collection out there.
Yeah.
There's
It's
no there's there's no essential book at all that you
yeah.
have to read.
Yeah. I mean,
You read whatever you want, as
yeah.
long
Some
as
people.
it doesn't
Yeah. Some
harm anyone.
exactly. Like some people love horror, and so if that genre is your thing, great. Some people love silver or gold or bronze age. Some people hate DC or hate Marvel, or I'm not going to read black and white. Well, that sucks because you're missing out on a lot of really good stuff. But
Yeah.
I only read comics in color. If that's your thing, you know that's great. I actually almost more encourage people to find a genre,
Yeah.
that really speaks to them and stick with it. And then get some good series under your belt with that, and then maybe go get some samplers of some books that you've heard a lot about that seem interesting, and check out some of those either digitally or just buy the first one and see if it really speaks to you. And if it doesn't, get rid of it. And if it does, then try out the second one. There's no need to always just have to jump into a 4 or 5 10 book series and buy everything just because you heard it was good.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've repeatedly said this in so many videos that I don't even know why I make new ones. Uh, but know what you like. I mean, if you pave your own road with the books that you actually take your time into reading, so to get perspective on what kind of art do I like, what kind of writers write the
Mm-hmm.
way that I want the books to speak to me,
Mm-hmm.
you get much more better hindsight on upcoming books if you
Yep.
pre-order or if you stand there on the same day that they're in for release, or whenever you go into a comic shop to find something new and discover.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have certain names or certain art styles to go after, it'll make it a much more quicker visit in your comic shop. Not that you necessarily have to make a quick visit. I mean,
Yeah.
make friends,
Yeah.
and but I mean, don't overspend. Don't scribble around on websites just for the sake of finding something, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe because I have done this with stuff. I mean, but maybe more with comic book movies or movies in general, maybe just scrolling down, okay, what's on sale right now? Do I have any movies that I've heard something, or series that I've heard something about that's on sale? And at that time I still had like 10 to 20 sealed movies or series to caught up on. I mean, look behind you, or in your box, or your unit, wherever you keep those stuff that's still shrink wrap. Look behind you, read your stuff, watch your stuff. I mean, because the true FOMO, the fear of missing out, what you are missing out on are the stuff that you already have.
Oh yeah.
And don't read or watch.
Yeah, it's tough. It's like there's very few artists or writers that if their name is on a book that I'm going to 100% buy immediately. And like I do collect a lot of like Mignola, and obviously Stan Sakai and Terry Moore and Jeff Lemire are kind of like the four guys. Like if they're on a book, there's a really good chance I'm going to pick it up, but it's not even a guarantee for me necessarily that like I have to pick it up. It's still going to be is this, I have to now run myself through a lot of stuff. Do I need to know history? Do I need to buy other books before I even read this one? Is this the first of a long ongoing series? Is this even a genre? Like it might be a writer or artist I love, but is it a genre they're writing that isn't really interesting to me? Like, you just gotta ask yourself a lot of questions beyond when's this come out and when can I buy it?
Yeah, and I can get so sucked into my own thinking, and then I mean, because I don't think that I'm the only one that actually ask myself these questions, but then there's what are those questions that other people are asking themselves, because they're not necessarily the same ones, and those are sort of the ones that I try to raise. And of course, I still don't think I made my own FOMO video. Really, I think I have something to say on it also, but I mentioned it in several videos still.
I feel like your channel is about FOMO. A lot of what your channel is about is FOMO.
I'm just a downer, just talking
a huge
about
downer. No, but I think a lot of what you talk about springs out. A lot of the topics that you cover springs from the idea of caring about people dealing with it, and how to curate a collection and how to take care of it, and when to sell, when to buy. Your one of your latest videos on minimalism, like a lot of it has kind of good tie-ins to that, so it's not necessarily a bad thing that it's all around this amalgamous idea of FOMO. I really like that. I think it's a good take on it, where it's I guess what you're saying, asking questions. Why do I want this book? What's the reasonings behind it?
I think, just sorry to jump in,
no,
but I think the most common question that people ask, and I think it's the one and only question people ask themselves when it comes to buy a new book, is, do I have the money to buy it right now?
Yeah.
And if that is yes, then they're gonna do it, and then there's no follow-up question. And I made one video on that, and that is time.
Yeah. And what was the quote you had in one of your videos? You buy books. You don't buy books with money. You buy books with your time.
Exactly. And it's not my quote. I found it, but it's so true.
Yeah, it's a very true quote, in that you're buying a book with the time you spent earning that money. You're experiencing that book with your time. How much time do you want to give that book? Do you want to, if you make $20 an hour and you buy a $60 book. Is that story worth 3 of your hours working plus the
Oh,
10 hours that you spend reading it? So is
oh,
that book
you took it
worth,
even farther
yeah,
now than I even thought
yeah,
of it.
but like, is that book worth 13 hours of your life? And I mean, a lot of books are, a whole series. Is it worth way more than that? It's going to cost you way more than that in the long run of money and how long it takes you to read it. And is
Yeah.
that series worth it? And I don't think people should be afraid of reading a series
No,
to a
absolutely
point
not.
and
But they
being like, you
shouldn't
know what,
even.
I'm done with
But
it, and then move on.
yeah, just like that, they shouldn't be afraid to jump into a longer series, but at the same point, they shouldn't be afraid to ask themselves a question that might end up be the answer being no. I
Hmm.
don't have time. I
Yeah,
can't afford this right now, or I
yeah,
don't really have the space for this. And
yeah.
of course, with my videos, I'm just trying to give perspective. I am in no way trying to turn anybody into minimalist or minimalism, essentialism, whatever you want to call it. Because that's just my way of dealing with it, and I try to give some perspective on it. On this is what you can do.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, that happened with me with Walking Dead. I read all the way through. What did they go to? 170 ish or
Yeah,
something like that.
172, I want to say.
172, something like that. But they had a couple offshoot series and mini story. But like, I read to issue 100, and something big happened in 100. I won't give it away if someone
Yeah,
wants to go read it. But at that point, I was like, you know what? Like, I've enjoyed a lot of this series. I have a really good idea of the tone and the feel, and there's characters I loved and I hated. And I kind of kept up with some news stuff just to kind of hear about kind of what was happening. But at that point, I was like, it's not for me. I don't need to be wasting, not, it's not even really wasting, but this isn't something I want to dedicate more of my time to and more of my money to. I want to go in a different direction. And that's what I did. And I haven't really regretted it. And I think, some people loved it and kept reading. And some people, I actually met a lot of people who have stopped at issue 100 because of what happened.
yeah,
And, it's not a bad thing to say, this isn't for me anymore.
absolutely not. Because I mean, they're a company, there's a certain writer, and they have a certain way they're going to go.
Hmm.
And yeah, if you're not into it, I mean, you're one person. I maybe if you have like the most influence on them
Yeah.
or something leverage, but otherwise, don't just
Hmm.
don't give into it. I mean, it's not going to change just because you follow it. Because
Hmm.
I experienced the same thing with the Assassin's Creed game franchise.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's one that you
After
could definitely get sucked into. And
yeah, it was amazing. And jumping into the very first Assassin's Creed game where I
Mhm.
started, I didn't even know it was a sci-fi.
Yeah.
So that was amazing for me. I bought the novels even that adapted all of the
Hmm.
earlier stories. I think I went all up to Revelation, or even beyond that. If
Okay.
the steampunk era, I forgot
Oh, okay.
Syndicate.
Oh, okay.
And Syndicate I played the most, I think. But really, after Assassin's Creed 3, that's where they totally ruined it for me, where they were going with that series.
Yeah.
And I still bought the Black Flag and let's see here, Unity, which was in
Hmm.
the French Revelation,
Yeah.
and after that it was Syndicate. After Syndicate, because that was the last game that I actually played through the whole main story, there came uh, the Origins and the Odyssey.
Yeah.
The Odyssey, I never brought out of shrink wrap, and Origins, I never finished off the
Yeah.
first playing map that you the
Oh,
first
yeah.
area where you stood,
Yeah.
because I was just not feeling it.
Yeah.
And taking it back to comic books, whatever story you read, you're not feeling it. It's not going to change just because you put your money into it. I
Yeah.
mean, I thought that I would be subscribed to Batman comics forever
Mm-hmm.
by proxy because I have Batman tattoos.
Yeah.
My body said that as well. Uh, and yeah, it's it's not a signed contract. It's a pull list.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's why you gotta don't just buy all 10 books in the series or whatever. It's like, buy one. If you're going to go in blind, buy one or two. If you hear like, well, you kind of got to get through one and then two is where it really hits hard. And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
so you buy the first two, or, get in, try it out digitally or whatever. And you go, okay, this is for me. I'll start reading it as it goes. And if you decide, this isn't for me, drop it. And that's been kind of a freeing mindset to me too. Is like, well, I can drop it. I can keep, books 1 through 3 if I really liked them, and I don't have to go buy 4 through 10 or whatever. And I can just enjoy those, or I can just get rid of them, and I still have that experience, and I can move on.
Yeah, and it is a really unconventional tip or theory. I mean, because there's this anime series called Kaiji, the gambler or something. He's like total gamble addict, and it's so good. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh, but with real games,
Yeah.
like casino games and whatnot, and some sort of death twist to the game or something like that. It's just when you get into the thinking and everything on strategy and everything, really good series. But what I want to talk about was my brother introducing me to that anime series. He introduced me into episode 1, season 2, before jumping into the first episode, because he wanted me to experience when the engine was running right in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So by that, I mean, because with Batman and Spider-Man, that's been ongoing forever. That's kind of how you have to do, you do it.
Yeah.
You jump in at a certain spot when it's already going hot.
Yeah.
Because they don't do reboots as
Yeah.
often. Maybe
Yeah.
they do reboots, but
And even when they do reboots, half the time it's still like other characters carrying through and some through lines. And
yeah.
so there's never, rarely is there ever really a true, like, here's the relaunch. Like everything's wiped clean.
Do you think you can buy books and then jump into maybe volume 2 of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right away, start reading there, not beginning from issue number 1, just to get a feel of those issues, if I should go and hunt for that out of print volume 1?
I think that, that's not necessarily a bad idea.
You don't get the sequential story,
you don't get the
but
sequential
you should
story,
get some feeling of it.
Yeah, it really does give you a flavor for it. And I mean, that's when you kind of got to ask some trusted people, like, hey, what's a good sampler for me to see what this series, can be like. So I mean, even, TMNT is one of my favorite series of all times, the IDW ongoing, but there's some mini series and there's some storylines in there that I hate. And it's, I pushed through and I was like, okay, we'll see if this gets better. And it did get a lot better and picks right back up. And I'm like, okay, now I'm loving it again. So, I mean, I'd be like, okay, if you want to read this series, start at number 1, because 1 and 2 are like my absolute favorites, but here's also some samplers you could read that are really going to give you an idea of what this series can do. Like you talking about that show, watching a show later on reminded me of, that's how I got into Avatar: The Last Airbender. Was in college. I walked into a friend's dorm and he was watching is the Witch Mountain episode, if you know it,
Yeah.
with bloodbending. And I was like, what in the world are you watching? And he's like, dude, you gotta. So I watched that. And he was like 5 minutes into it. So he just restarted it and him and I just watched it. I'm like, my God, this is amazing. And if I had just started at episode 1 on that series, I'd have been like, nope, not for me. This is stupid. And I've even done that with people. I'd be like, oh, check out the series. And stupidly, I show them episode 1 and it's very Nickelodeon and a lot of stupid jokes. But, so there's sometimes where it's like you really got to jump. You kind of got to hook people in with a later on series, part of the series before. Yeah.
If you want people to start reading Batman, you don't introduce them to Detective Comics issue number 27.
Yeah. You get them into, I wouldn't say Morrison, but like honestly, where I started with Batman New 52 with like Court of Owls, that was a great place to start because you kind of know what's going on with Batman and all of a sudden it's something totally new and, a lot of fun. And that was a great place for me to start.
Yeah. It is. And I have one more question, or two more actually, but yeah.
Okay.
The big question here really, what makes you a comic book fan, and like how would you describe your fandom?
It's a hard, big question. Come on.
I know this is one that gets some people.
I love storytelling, and I'm a filmmaker at heart. I mean, I really love documentary filmmaking, and that's kind of my passion for like real life video production. But I love storytelling, and I love visuals. And I like to just kind of relax and read a book, which I grew up and I hated reading as a kid. I didn't like reading until after college. And I started reading some novels, and then, like I said, I got into comics. But it's that perfect mashup of like visual storytelling and just like quiet reading. So that's why I love comics. And I can hear the voices in my head. I can see the pictures, but I'm not looking at my phone or looking at a TV screen or a computer screen. I'm just reading a book, which is why I don't like reading digitally much. I used to read digitally a lot, but it's just nice getting away from staring at a screen all day, and it's hearing the silence. It's just sitting outside, and there's just wind and trees and roads in the distance and kids crying off in the distance or in my house. But so that's why I really love comics, is it's just that bringing together all those mediums I love, but also like just a quiet, relaxed time. What was the other part?
Here I'm just thinking about hearing the quiet. I mean, that's good. I always have something in the background when I'm reading. Usually a live stream show, but everything. But yeah. I mean, I don't know. I can't need that white noise background, like I'm somewhere. But I do hear the voices when I read Batman. I hear Kevin Conroy. Yeah. But I wonder how much I'm missing by diluting it with other sounds behind me and not just reading there.
Yeah, and
100%.
I still put on music here and there, and a lot of times I'll be sitting on the couch and my wife's watching a show and I'm reading. But I really love like the Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings when I can miraculously wake up before anyone else in the house and have a cup of coffee and just read, get a few issues read or however much, and just have that silence and just being drawn into a story is so nice.
Yeah. So I would say that answer was what makes you a comic book fan, if I would put it. So how would you describe your fandom? towards comics? If that's not the same question, that's why I kind of brought them up.
No. I mean, my fandom towards comics, I love, for the most part, I love the community. I love that so many of the creators and the publishers and all that are also fans, and they're engaged, and most everyone can engage, and most of us are pretty civil about it. Hopefully, I mean, if someone's not being civil about it, I just kind of cut ties and like, all right,
Cut it out.
I mean, that's part of why I chose the name Omnibuddy, is because it's kind of a diffused, like, I'm not taking myself super seriously. Like, I love comics. It's fun. I'm trying to have fun. I'm trying to relax and just engage and enjoy stories. And I love sharing that and talking about that. Like we're talking about it right now. We're talking about not only stories, we talk about Batman and, TMNT and all these, but like about like just the connection of like, okay, now we're talking about how to bind books or how to collect or take care of our books. It's that community, just engaging with other people and sharing that love of the love of this medium of storytelling through pictures and words. And we happen to be the kind of niche market of the collected version of those visual stories. And so I just love engaging with the community like that.
Yeah.
So, which is a big reason why I loved making my YouTube channel and Instagram and all that, is so I can just be visual. I can talk about these stories. I can engage with people even more. And I can also, be creative with it and not just consume content, but also like we're doing right now is trying to help create content.
Yeah.
So I don't want to, like we talked about consumerism before, where we're just consuming books and spending and buying, but we're also actively participating and putting content out there and discussing. And, we're not creating nearly as much as, Remender and Brubaker are, but we're adding to the community, and hopefully we're adding to the community in a positive way.
Yeah. I think what I can take out, if there's one word, and I did this with BJ Kicks as well, but I would say that it's sharing then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we would sum it up to one word, or community, but sharing, I think, was your word there. Yeah,
no, I mean, we're sharing it's shared stories. It's shared, I love when people ask questions, and I really love when I have the answer and I can share the answer with them. Like, this is the reading order of this, or this is the reason why this, or, this is a genre you should look at because it seems like something that might be up your alley with what I'm seeing on your shelves and you're saying you like. And it's a lot of that shared back and forth. I think I think that's a good word to sum it up.
Absolutely. That's great. And I have one more question for you before we wrap this up.
Yeah.
And that is, where can people find you?
Thank you for asking. No, so I am on YouTube, youtube.com/Omnibuddy. I'm on where I started is on Instagram, which is Omnibuddy. So if you go to instagram.com/Omnibuddy, I'm on Twitter, Facebook. I have a Facebook group, the Collected Edition community. So there's tons of places you can find me all over the internet, on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm all over the place. But yeah,
I'll make sure to link as much as I can in the description below.
Oh, it's all good. I had someone, I opened Pinterest the other day for the first time in like solid 5 years at least.
Backlog.
I noticed I had a Pinterest bookmark. I'm like, oh, I'll pin. I wonder what if my account's still signed in. What I even pinned way back then, because I had it for maybe a month. And my wife's like, oh, you should do this for the house and all that kind of stuff. And okay. So I just opened it back up randomly like a week ago. And I had a message on there from someone about a Kickstarter I had commented on from Omnibuddy. And they're like, are you the Mitch from this? I'm like, yeah, but yeah, I didn't even know there was private messaging on Pinterest. So yeah, you can
I
track
didn't
me.
either.
So all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for doing this together with me, Mitch, trying to find fandom and everything, and talking about the community and collecting and whatnot.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been awesome. This is a really good conversation. I hope other people could take something from it. So
Absolutely. Me too. So thank you all so much for joining. Hope you liked it. Hope you enjoyed. And go check out Mitch's channel, Omnibuddy. Subscribe. Check out his content. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. See you all in another video. Bye-bye.